Finally, for some real, tangible news to share. Hello, hi, once again, this is yours truly, Clarice T, and welcome to the fourth episode of my podcast. Today is the eve of Independence Day. It's a Sunday, so it's a very relaxing Sunday, knowing that tomorrow is a holiday. And more than any other holiday, I truly am relishing this Independence Day, Araw ng Kalayaan. For starter, in my podcast, I just want to open this with a question. No matter what your age is, can you recall the last time when your parents had spoken or spoke to someone in your behalf, like be it in person or personally as a favor or in a formal session, formal venue? While we were young, my parents needed would be on account of the number of tardiness late. I was late too many times, and then my absences. Those were the things that usually I would need a letter from my parents saying, explaining my actions. And then later on, when we tried to find me an employment, just to explore that source of income, like if I could not have, it's nice to have a fallback if I, do not make the cut in the business that I've chosen. It's always, there's nothing wrong with exploring the possibility of employment. So my late father, when I was in my 20s, would, call an office to look for, in my behalf. So that much, I have to concede that as others would, submit their application for a job or a work, for a vacancy. Well, it's also nice to have a father like my father who might not influence, but to look over the possibilities that I could somehow be qualified, which, all of the possibilities had been answered negatively. Somehow, I do believe that after reaching the nth person, and, I tried to be a typist. I didn't make the cut. I tried, my father that was the last time actually when he offered me a writing assignment, but I had to use a pseudonym. I could not use my own name. And I declined. So how about you? When was the last time that your father or mother had asked favor in your behalf? Well, actually, what I can remember though is the turnaround or reversal of role, because during the last years of my mother, I was the one speaking for her, and I was the one asking favor if I could perhaps make an appeal in behalf of my mother. So it's quite a big responsibility. And I had latched onto it, to that job description. I can also remember speaking for our family during campaigns. The last campaign, when my father was still very much part of it, was year 2016. So he was although he was already complaining of the symptoms of his disease, but during that time, he was still able to move around, and he knew that I was also doing my speeches for Jerry. I was speaking in his behalf. So he had entrusted to me the platform, the physical stage, to be physically holding the microphone and speaking for him. Like, why should the first district vote for him? I would begin with, hello, good evening. My name is Clarissa Talaga, the elder sister of my candidate who wants to do this and something like that. And then I would make a pitch about his candidacy. So that's also quite a reversal of roles. I ask this question because this part is the conventional part of what will happen in the coming days. Because from there, that's the general norms, actually, what comes off as ordinary. And from there, I will veer away to the specific course of action that will speak of the very specific and personal circumstances that I have. Meaning, if I give emphasis on something that's already taken for granted, like if there are two or more people conversing with each other, the unspoken matter of fact is that each of us is some parent's child. Each of us comes from our parents. Each of us somehow represents the family name. Each of us comes from connectivity with the rest of the kin. The family name, the legal name, matters. On top of that, because my parents have already passed on to a better place, what their views are about their eldest daughter, they cannot say anything in my defense at this point in time. What they have left behind is would be the snapshot or probably our last arguments or our last bonding moments. Those would be the lasting things that would be carried over. But with regards to new development, with regards to my new status, it would be useless to ask for their sentiments or statements from them. So I am somebody's cousin. I am a niece to my uncles and to my aunts, and that the papers that I would be presenting would be proof of receipt, like that had been delivered by, like, for instance, the postal office, the postal corporation, or LBC. And the signatory to what's inside, the letters bearing my name, it is someone's cousin. It would be someone's niece or sister or mother, for that matter. But if the names or identifications of any of my family members, relatives would come out, it would be akin to something like me, Clarissa Talaga Garcia, making a fuss in my cousin's office. For instance, I have cousins who work in banks, who work from one bank to another. Another is in a big corporation. It would be like Clarissa Talaga Garcia going into the office of my cousin and delving into matters that do not concern me, but I would speak for my cousin, and I would, would come between them and their superiors, or between them or their customers or clients. And that would be so unheard of. That is crazy. In fact, whenever my daughter would be asked, so where's your mom? What has she been doing lately? The most obvious response, the most obvious question, the most obvious answer would be, I would be in charge of Jewel and Juanito because she's working. But is that the end all, be all of my occupation? With pleasantries, with casual highs and lows, how are you? That would do because it's not a place to be contentious. It's not a place to be into details. And there's a place and time for that. I don't know if any of my cousin will know how much budget I have allotted to the career expenses, and I don't know if my representation allowance had somehow been any of interest to them. But if it's the other way around, that would be downright crazy for me to get into their business and to meddle with things that I know nothing about. And it's like I don't trust them to make good decision. Where will my distrust and my mistrust bring me? Even if they, even if I hear bad news about them, even if I hear gossips and intrigues that will cast aspersion or that will slur the reputation, I don't think it's my business to take over. If I have that opportunity, like if our common friend or common connection would be involved in it, I don't think I can allow myself to speak for my cousins or to speak for my uncles and my aunts, even before discussing it with them. And if this will be a matter for reasonable men and women to discuss and to decide on, like the ordinary man on the street, we tend to look at ourselves, right? To compare, to relate. How would it go? For instance, if my third cousin, if my uncle or if my aunt would suddenly butt in and cause commotion, something like that. So I do not think that would be it will take special and extraordinary circumstances to make that happen. And that extraordinary circumstance will lend itself, the character of extraordinariness will lend itself to someone like me who will then assume an extraordinary quality or attributes. I say this because the private part, the private aspect of my work, where there is data privacy and where is wall, because there is some trade secrets and there is confidentiality that when it's breached, it could backfire into the company or with myself. What's the best interest of the company, what's the best interest of the contractors. And so all these things would be examined if we cross the legal aspect of it. So my cousins from the Mendiola side of the family, that's my mother, and the Talaga side of the family, that's my father, they would somehow be privy to the occupation of their cousin, of their niece in the last 5 years. And it will become a matter of official record. So yes, the bearer of this proof of receipt, expecting the natural reaction or response from the recipients, from the readers, she is someone's child, she's someone's mother, she's someone's sister. That's a given, just like how the recipient is someone's husband or wife or child to his or her parents. But we speak now as responsible adults with our occupation, with our respective occupation, and with respective role in the agreements or in the contracts that are in need to be resolved and make sense of. Speaking of extraordinary circumstances, and should we correlate it to another important sentence, no one is above the law? Well, at times, I speak for myself, I would regard something as extraordinary when in fact I mean justified. And of course, I don't always get to have the last say because, as it turns out, what I how I describe it as extraordinary is just so ordinary from the point of view of someone who's probably challenging me, challenging my course of action, my beliefs. So I want to hold my own judgment with regards what's ordinary or what's extraordinary. And I relate this to a situation wherein I have assembled into a file the receipts that I have and a copy of the letters and the packages that I've been able to send. And rather than speculate, it would be best to give the other parties a chance to answer the questions. When is it extraordinary, and what is the recourse if indeed there had been extraordinary circumstances? I would say that COVID-19 is a very, very extraordinary event intervening, force majeure, right? So before COVID-19, around 2017, 2018, since COVID-19 had not been in our radar until December of 2019, so the earlier months of 2019, we were business as usual. So I would be referring to the business climate before COVID-19 became concerning matters, like very specific question. Mr. Company Representative or Mr. Company Rep, on the virtue of the submissions I made, proof of which are duly submitted, can I ask who am I as far as the company is concerned? To this day, I am very certain about the contents of my letter and where I was coming from during those critical months. So the thing is that there should be communication, many communication for me to be able to post those questions and to state my reasons for reaching out in the first place. As a writer and as a speaker, the contents of my articles and my write-ups and my speeches should first and foremost be coming from my personal knowledge. And the reasons that I have for reaching out to these companies in the first place through the natural persons, a human being, of course, who can be a husband or wife of someone who is always a daughter or son of some parents just like me, who are cousins and nieces and nephews of some aunts and uncles also. Is it part of the extraordinary circumstances, the way I have to state the obvious, a more objective assessment or evaluation of what transpired can reduce the complexities into just simple terms, that these simple terms can either be ordinary circumstances calling for ordinary responses and reactions and courses of action, or indeed so much extraordinary elements and factors can justify extraordinary courses of actions. Still on another topic, but still within the purview of extraordinary. So how many people do you know find themselves having to explain where their previous lifestyle come from? Well, in my case, by putting up the information about our sources of funds from the beginning up to the present, I am able to come to court with the expenditures shouldered by said resources or assets or sources, the specific elaboration of clean hands. The receipts bear the amount, date, and nature of the payments I made directly and as a result of MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that I submit. They are intact. Because of them, I can ask who can be paying for the expenses and the cost of putting up what is supposedly a just cause to undermine my objectives, either personally or in business. Personally, as in relationally, as in like joining a group or becoming friends or getting attached to someone, and business-wise, contracts. So take, for instance, the various updates that I received that give dismal statistics. They run in conflict with the random snapshots that I also get. So those numbers are in conflict with each other. Those dismal statistics update that I receive, they sure cost money. The ordinary man on the street will not have both the financial capital and the influence to hire technical people to put them up. So I should give them the benefit of the doubt. So I should also be ready to find out the reasons for the dismal statistics. Once again, I feel this need to state the obvious, like how the activities and strategies to push for the interest of Clarissa T. Garcia Consultancy Services and the music releases of Clarice T, the podcast of Clarice T, they do not come free and is in fact time-consuming and expensive in my current circumstance. So to counter the gains of activities I do regularly and as part of my business, and to contain my progress, the motivation and intent should be there. In this way, I do not have to speculate or ruin my sleeping hours at night. The actions of the doer will confirm the vested interests. If it's competition, fine, some ground rules apply though. If it's for propaganda or my advocacy running in conflict with opposing advocacy, some other ground rules also apply. If it's career high, so it can be, professional jealousy. But if it's grudge, or a conflict based on financial statement, like my losses is their gain and my gain would mean their losses, that's what the legal representation is for. By the way, who is or are paying the activities that undermine me and my family's interests? It will not serve any purpose just to ask this by posting them online. I should direct it to anyone who can entertain the questions. Whose interests am I hurting, and why is it important for me to know with as much accuracy as I can confirm? It's because they will hurt me back. Where is the fund coming from? Are those also coming from legitimate funds like mine? And where are the proofs of their legitimacy? I log my daily work not so much as to show off and look good to others, but so that I'll have internal system to base how I should monetize my work come collection time, either through the Justice Department or through settlement. If there is some imbalance, like putting too much time and effort into one aspect of my work or my career and neglecting others, it will show on the progress and the problems that will surely crop up. And with this, please take a listen to my FB Live broadcast on the 30th of November 2020. The quarantine regulations were easing at this time. Here in the Philippines, the toughest part of the uncertainties caused by this unknown virus, coronavirus, COVID-19, were on the second to third quarter of that year, 2020. Our only source of information and updates came from online connectivity. The isolation, which included the draconian measure of scheduled out-of-the-house ticket, it reached to a point where it was just once a week. To buy food and essentials as well as pay bills was incomparable, I mean. There was nothing in all of my lifetime, in all the past years, that I could compare it to. Everything halted, and the fear that the standstill of everything would be prolonged if the contagion was not arrested was causing panic and cries of desperation. This was before the first vaccine had been introduced as a way out. After the testing and after the provisionary permit, the manufacturers, the pharmaceuticals were allowed. I was not immune to the doom and gloom scenarios, and it was not personal. Our pantry, our kitchen cupboard actually, was quite filled up courtesy of my daughter Lee's office provision to our two-person household at that time. My other two daughters were also adequate in their quarantine locations. Ours came from the pandemic assistance of Hyundai to their employees, to which I am so thankful to this day. Back to the 30th of November, just when the lockdown was easing, like we could go out of the house by strict compliance to wearing face masks and social distancing and self-isolation. If we begin suffering symptoms, the hospitals were filled to capacity still at that time. Gosh, and it was that time when I received a cease and desist order. Was I flustered? Yes. Was I confused? Most definitely. When I review this recording, this video, I can observe myself, and I do indeed notice how I smile a lot, laugh even when I'm caught off guard, when I'm flustered.
Am I live? I think I am live. Am I live? Yes, and so I am live. Today is a holiday, being the 30th of November 2020. And I would like to welcome, I just confirmed on Saturday that certain representatives in the legal, diba? In the legal counsel of the companies and businesses that I had mentioned and I had owned up, acknowledged, would be tuning in. So this, I am preparing actually since Saturday, my responses that, my basis for saying the things that I said and for doing the things that I did. First off, an apology is needed. So the most sincere apologies that I could muster. And of course, an apology is useless without actions, without overt manifestations of how, how I am sorry, and that feelings and confusion must have resulted, diba, from my words and from my actions. So that will be, diba, kumbaga sa weighing scale, the grand lady of justice, in one scale, yun, the manifestations and the consequences of my actions and my words. And on these other the other in the balancing scale, I am given a chance now, to explain why I said what I said and why I did what I did. So, being reasonable human beings, as I am not a lawyer, I am just a researcher. My tasks actually runs from what systemic day by day drawing of today how I can accomplish the goals, given that we do not have the manpower to take care of all.
Please tune in to my next podcast for the gist of my reply to Kisumbing Taurus Law Office, which to this day still holds true. Bye. So if I'm real and if my documents are truly registered in the local regulatory offices, then my hold over this runaway, aka or also known as Clarissa, is truly a legal reality.